Okay, look at this crazy thing. This beat up old Minolta leather case, the bottom of it is no longer attached to this piece of leather, so it just falls off. Might as well just ditch that and keep this nice half case on. That's a pretty good looking camera. It's called the Minolta A5. I found it at a pawn shop for $20. It has an aperture scale here, and it has a shutter speed here. It has shutter speeds from 1,000 down to a 1 second shutter and bulb, and it has apertures from 2.8 to 22 that are all right here on top of the lens. And it's a good looking camera. It's called the Minolta 1000 because it was probably the first one or one of the early ones that had 1,000th of a second shutter speed, which many of these cameras topped off at 500, so to have 1,000th of a shutter speed, they even named the camera after that. So if we take this off of the case, this used to have a screw that would keep that connected to that so you wouldn't have it fall off, but somebody lost that already. It's a good looking camera though. It's got a 2.8 45mm lens. That's not as fast as a lot of the later ones, which had 1.7s. The Canon QL17 or the Minolta Hymatic 11, which we looked at already. It has a pretty simple counter system. It feels like this has been almost like they had a little rubber grip on this, and this hurts me to wind it because there's a big pointy piece of metal at the edge of it. Again, this is the kind of camera you don't pay more than $20 for. But a good Minolta Roker lens, it's got a filter on it, so it's probably taken care of and probably had that lens on since the day it was bought. And again, the rangefinder works inside the viewfinder. I can see that the rangefinder is clear, and this is a great camera for solid feel, a camera that has a good look with a cool leather case. Straps were built into the cases back then a lot of times, so when you put a half case on it, you have a strap now, and you walk around with this and you're going to get some looks, you're going to get some people stopping to talk to you. If you're a guy, you might even find some girls. That's my story. But in any case, the Minolta A5, let's check the shutter speeds and see what they look like and if they sound okay. You press down on this little lever here, and that opens the back. These typically look really clean inside because they're all stored all closed up. This is a half a second exposure. I'm trying to see if you can see that. You can certainly hear it. The wind, even though it's got a pointy edge on it, it's very smooth. Here's a 15th of a second. That sounds accurate. Here's a 1,000th of a second since that was their top speed. Again, the shutter speeds seem to work. Usually the slow shutter speeds become more problematic than the fast ones. So let's try a 1 second exposure. That sounds about right. Let's try a 1/4 of a second. You can hear the difference. 15th of a second. So I use my ears a lot when I check out a camera to see if it's working and see if it seems like it's going to be accurate. If you can make the aperture work, so sometimes you can put it on bulb, and then with the lens open, if you can see this, I'm going to turn the aperture, and you can actually see it inside the lens changing. Now I may need to hold it up to light to do it, but it looks like it has about 8 or 10 blades that are turning and closing. I don't know if you can see that at all. And it's very mechanical. And then if you hold the shutter down while it's on bulb, you can take a look inside the camera and you can actually see it opening and closing and seeing if it looks like it's got oil all over it or if it looks pretty clean. This one looks pretty clean. There is one thing I notice. After I shoot a picture, it's got this little handy, watch this. As I push that up, there's a hole there. I think there might have been a screw in there and somebody took it out. So that's the kind of thing, like you would talk to the person who you were buying it from and say, you know, can you do any better? It looks like it's been worked on or something missing. That's a great negotiating point. That says something is a little bit wrong with it, even though it has no effect. Light doesn't go in through there and affect the film in any way. But it's a great bargaining point. So use those when you get those. So again, here's your focus. It's got a little tab at the bottom, just like the Leicas have, that give you a real smooth focus. You can learn where those focus points are. It's just like a Leica in that it focuses down to about 3 feet. And again, it's a 45 millimeter, just about a normal lens, 2.8. Good for most things. You could shoot this at a 30th of a second at 2.8 inside most places and you'll get a picture. 15th of a second at 2.8 certainly. Outside, plenty of available shutter speeds and apertures because it has that fast thousandths of a second, and shutter goes all the way down to, or the aperture goes all the way down to 22, not just 16. So, highly recommend. I like the feel of it. Find one with a cool case. I found this and it was in this, and can you imagine looking at that in a case? That's all beat up looking. It looks like it would just be horrible. But the cases don't matter. This thing is built to last, and how many years later, it's probably out from the late 50s, and how many years later and all the shutters are still working and it's a good looking camera. This is something that I would carry around and I would trust. The shutters are working, the apertures are working, and that's all a camera is an aperture and a shutter, a box to hold the film still. And as long as you have that, this is a great buy. $20 find, highly recommended. A Minolta A5, I didn't even know about a Minolta A5 when I bought it. I just thought it was a cool camera and looked it up afterwards. But I liked that it had an aperture and a shutter speed dial. All right, that's all on the Minolta. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below and I'll answer your questions, and I'll bring you more cameras all the time. Thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button too. Thanks.